when we see something like this, again, I always go back to the evidence and the science that supports some of these discussions.
Yeah.
And what is going on here?
What we have here at the bottom of this jar is this white powder that's manna. It's the traditional manna, and you can see it kind of, when it forms, it forms as like this conical shape, this mound at the bottom of the jar. And this substance, beyond being something that's healing, it's also superconductive. So you can imagine, if you consider the stories of the Ark was actually created to hold the manna. And then Solomon's temple was created to hold the Ark. So the entire purpose for Solomon's temple was to hold this manna. You know, the manna went in the Ark went in the temple. And this manna, being a superconductive substance, when it was put inside the Ark, and the Ark was basically like a capacitor.
An energy source.
An energy source. It just issued a tremendous amount of electricity. And this is the reason why nobody could touch it without dying.
And this is a manufacturing process, and this is how this was done.
Yes, and this is it, yeah.
Okay, so again, it's back to the evidence into deep history. Yeah. And when we mention the manufacturing of this, of the manna in the jar, there's a cone shape at the bottom, but I think it's represented. Josh, if you could,
yes,
pull up this image here. Is that what we're seeing here, Tim?
Yes, that's exactly what you're seeing. So as you see, the figure who represents Osiris is holding this cone-shaped bread, and he's handing it to the guy that has the heaven plumes of Amen on his head, and he's offering it to him. And the reason why it's that cone-shaped is because that's how it forms when you go to make it.
And there's a lot of excitement in that image too as well.
He's very excited.
What is inside of the Ark? You mentioned that possibly the manna manufacturing process is happening there, but it's like the biggest mystery in history. What is inside of the Ark?
Well, traditionally they said that the tablets, the what we would now know as the tablets of the commandments, were put inside the Ark, as well as a pot of manna, is how it's described. It should be pointed out that Moses had both the Ten Commandments, and then he also had these tablets of testimony. And according to alchemical traditions, this tablet of testimony was actually this emerald tablet. But these things were put inside of the Ark. From a power standpoint, that manna is really a superconductive substance. So when you put a superconductive substance inside a capacitor, like the Ark, it just causes it to produce an immense amount of electricity that it just broadcasts out.
I've got a couple of other images here that, to me, represent a vessel. I see a vessel here, and we just looked at a manna jar, and I see the connection. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so what we have here, so this is at Amiens Cathedral. So one of the things that the Templars did when they came back to Europe is they were responsible for building the first cathedrals of France. And inside these cathedrals, they put all kinds of imagery. Most people think of just biblical scenes, but they also depicted alchemical processes for manufacturing this manna. And this is one example of that. You see the figure holding, it's called an Athanor oven. It's an alchemical oven, and they're pulling a salamander out of the bottom of it. And what they're really depicting is, in the language, the alchemical language, a salamander, they didn't actually believe that lizards lived in ovens. But they knew that, like, you could break down the word salamander into the words sal and mandra, which meant sal meant salt and mandra meant stable. So what they were saying is you could extract the stable salts out of the oven after you've calcinated down all the other materials.